I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here telling a story like this, but here I am. My name's Jake, and I've been with my wife, Lisa, for about 8 years now. We got married young, both chasing careers, but I always thought we had a solid foundation. She was fiery, confident, a little bitchy sometimes, but we balanced each other out. Or so I thought. The first signs that something was off didn't come all at once. It started with small things. Little texts she'd hide behind her phone late nights at work that stretched a little longer than usual. A lot of defensive muttering when I'd try to bring it up. I'd catch her staring at her phone a lot more, typing quickly and then deleting messages. She'd get defensive if I asked who she was texting, brushing it off with some snarky comment about work stress or needing me time. I brushed it off at first. Maybe I was just paranoid. But then it got worse. She started lying about her whereabouts, saying she was at a meeting or out with friends when I'd call or text and get no answer. She'd come home late, smelling different or wearing different clothes than she usually did. I knew she was hiding something, but I didn't want to believe she'd cheat on me. I mean, she'd always been a bitch, but I didn't think she'd do something like that. One night I was working late myself. I just finished a presentation for a big promotion I'd been working toward for months. It was a huge deal. I was competing against a guy named Mark, who's sharp, ambitious, and honestly kind of a snake. Our rivalry had been intense. That night I was sitting at my desk, feeling pretty good about my chances. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Lisa, which was normal. What was normal was the email chain she accidentally forwarded me. I was about to ignore it, but then I saw the subject line, "Secrets for the Big Night." My heart kicked up a notch. Curious, I opened it. What I saw made my stomach drop. It was a conversation between Lisa and Mark. Yeah, the same Mark I was up against for that promotion. They were sharing company secrets, planning how to sabotage my presentation, how to make sure I'd fail in front of the boss, and it wasn't just about work. There were intimate details, flirtatious jokes, and plans to meet at some hotel after work that night. My wife, my partner, was sharing company secrets with my rival, and they were fucking planning to meet in a hotel, not just to talk work but apparently to have sex too. I couldn't believe what I was reading. It was like my whole world crumbled in that moment. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. I felt betrayed, furious, heartbroken, like I'd been punched in the gut. The worst part wasn't just the sabotage or the cheating. It was that she had lied to my face every single day, and I was so blind I didn't see it coming. I'd trusted her. I had no idea she was capable of this level of betrayal. And Mark, that snake. I'd always thought he was a decent guy, but apparently he'd stooped pretty low. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I stayed up, staring at the email chain, trying to process what I just learned. How could she do this? How could she be so callous and manipulative? I'd always thought she was a bitch, but I never thought she'd be a cheater, a liar, a traitor to what we had. My mind kept circling back to that hotel rendezvous, the secrets exchanged, the lies spun. I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't want to do it right away. I needed a plan. I needed to get my head straight. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. I knew I couldn't pretend everything was fine anymore. I needed the truth from her. I needed to see if she'd admit to what I'd seen or keep lying. And that's when I decided this was no longer just suspicion. This was reality, and I was going to find out exactly how deep her betrayal went. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the email chain was pretty damning. I had the choice of confronting her then and there, but I knew better. I needed to see if she'd slip up, give me something more concrete, or just deny everything. So I played it cool that morning, pretending I was still asleep when she came out of the shower, acting like I didn't know what I'd seen. She was her usual bitchy self, snapping at me about how I was overreacting or reading too much into things, but I wasn't about to let her spin her way out of this. I waited until she left for work, then I started digging. I went back over the email chain, looked at her recent texts, her social media activity. I had to be sure, and sure enough, there were signs she was planning something that night. Her phone had a bunch of messages with Mark, full of flirtation, plans to meet, and even some "see you soon" messages that made my stomach churn. It was clear she was hiding something, and I had enough evidence now to see her for what she really was, nothing close to the woman I'd thought I knew. I decided to set a trap. I wanted her to come home, think she had the upper hand, maybe even admit to something. I figured I'd catch her off guard and get her to slip up. So I left work early, knowing she'd probably try to cover her tracks before I got there. I knew she'd be nervous, maybe even trying to hide her phone. I kept my eyes open, watching the clock, waiting for her to come through that door. When she finally did, I was sitting on the couch, calm on the surface but seething underneath. She strutted in, acting like she hadn't done anything wrong. I could see the nervous flicker in her eyes, the way she avoided my gaze. That's when I dropped the bomb. I pulled out my phone, showed her the email chain, and asked her straight up, "Were you meeting Mark tonight? Were you planning to sabotage my career and sleep with him?" Her face went pale and she scoffed, trying to dismiss it with a shot of her usual bitchy attitude. "Oh, please," she said, rolling her eyes. "You're paranoid, that email, fake. Someone's messing with you, probably your jealous mind." She looked annoyed, like I was wasting her time, but I wasn't buying it. I told her I knew everything, the email, the texts, the plans. And she just sneered at me, lying her ass off, claiming she was just talking about work, that I was overly suspicious, that I didn't trust her. But I knew better. I saw the truth in her eyes, the guilt, the panic. The confrontation turned heated fast. She yelled at me, accusing me of being paranoid, controlling, and insecure. Said I was crazy for even thinking she'd do something like that. She called me possessive and jealous, like I was some psycho, but I wasn't just paranoid. I'd seen enough now. I could feel my blood boiling, the betrayal sinking deep. How could she lie so easily? How could she pretend she hadn't just planned to cheat, to destroy my career, to humiliate me? I felt like I was losing my mind, like I'd been punched again. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, knew what she'd done. My stomach twisted with rage and heartbreak. I had invested so much in us, in our life. And she was out there, sneaking around with my rival, sharing secrets, planning to ruin me. I'd always thought she was a bitch, but I never thought she'd be this evil. The whole thing felt like a punch in the gut. I'd trusted her, loved her, and now I was questioning everything. I kept asking myself, how could she do this? How could she be so callous? And the worst part was, I knew this wasn't just a mistake. It was deliberate, planned, and malicious. I realized I had to decide what I was going to do next. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I couldn't keep trusting her after this. But I also didn't want to make a rash decision in the heat of my pain. I promised myself I'd think it through, but deep down I already knew this was the beginning of the end. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been run over by a truck. Everything in my mind was racing, images of her lying, smirking, trying to deny what I'd seen. I couldn't get that email out of my head, and honestly, I didn't want to. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time with more clarity. I wasn't going to be played for a fool. I needed her to face the truth, no matter how much I hated what I was about to do. She came home from work that afternoon, acting like everything was normal. That pissed me off even more. She had the nerve to act like she hadn't done anything wrong, like I was just overreacting. I did hold back. As soon as she stepped inside, I shoved the phone in her face, showed her the email chain again. She froze for a second, then immediately threw up her hands and started her usual bullshit. "Oh, come on," she snapped. "That's just some stupid prank someone sent you. You're totally overthinking this. Mark and we're just friends. He's just helping me with some work stuff, that's all. You're making a big deal out of nothing." I looked at her, disgusted. "Nothing, nothing. You're planning to sabotage my career and sleep with my biggest competitor, and you call that nothing? You've been lying to my face, Lisa. I saw the emails. I saw the texts. I know what you're up to." She rolled her eyes, trying to dismiss me with her typical attitude. "You're crazy. I don't know what you're talking about. All I do is work. You're just this jealous, insecure guy who doesn't understand how women work." Her voice dripped with sarcasm. Then she started to turn things around, trying to make me doubt myself, like I was the one with the problem. It was infuriating. I'd never seen her like this, so cold, so dismissive of what she'd done. She kept insisting she was innocent, that I was just imagining things, that Mark was helping her with a project and the hotel thing, just a misunderstanding. She kept lying, trying to gaslight me into believing I was crazy, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I knew the truth. She was cheating on me with Mark and trying to destroy me at the same time. I could feel my patience running out. My entire body was tense. I'd never been a confrontational guy, at least not like this. But now something inside me snapped. I told her enough was enough. I told her she was a liar, a cheat, and a manipulator. I demanded she tell me the truth face to face. I said I wasn't going to be some fool anymore, that I deserved honesty and respect. Her reaction was a mix of fury and contempt. She started yelling at me, calling me controlling, possessive, and paranoid. She said I was ruining everything and that I was jealous of Mark because I couldn't compete with him. She told me I was overreacting, that it was just sex, just work, that I was making a mountain out of a molehill. It didn't matter what she said. I saw her for what she was, a liar trying to save her ass. That's when I decided enough was enough. I told her I wanted a divorce. I explained I couldn't stay with someone who had lied to my face, who had betrayed me so deeply. I told her I was done, that I'd rather be alone than stay with a woman who'd cheat and lie and try to ruin me. She tried to argue, to guilt-trip me, but I wasn't having it. I had made up my mind. This was over. The rest of that evening was a blur. She packed her stuff and left, calling me all sorts of names: bitch, psycho, jealous idiot. Honestly, I was numb. I didn't cry. I just felt hollow, broken. I kept thinking about what she'd done, how she'd used me, how she'd lied to my face, how she'd shared my secrets with someone I'd been competing against for a promotion. I felt stupid for trusting her, for loving her, for believing that maybe, just maybe, we had something real. But as much as I was hurting, a part of me felt free. Free from her lies, her manipulations, her betrayal. I knew I'd be okay. I'd rebuild somehow. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but I'd get past this. And I sure as hell wouldn't forget what she did. That kind of betrayal doesn't just disappear. It stays with you like a scar you carry forever. Now I'm left to figure out what's next. Do I try to fix this? Do I fight for a reconciliation? Honestly, I don't think I can. She showed me who she really was, and I refuse to be played anymore. I want to move on better, stronger, wiser. And as I sit here, typing this out, I realize one thing. I learned a lot about trust, betrayal, and how sometimes the person you love the most can turn out to be the biggest enemy. After she left, I sat alone in the quiet apartment, trying to process everything that had just happened. Honestly, it felt like my brain was on overdrive, my mind jumping from anger to sadness to disbelief. Part of me kept replaying those emails, her stupid excuses, her sneering face when she denied everything. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I let her manipulate me for so long. Honestly, I felt stupid for trusting her at all. It was clear she'd been planning this for a while. The way she'd been acting, hiding her phone, lying about where she was, she'd been building her case for her betrayal. And Mark, that bastard. I used to think he was a decent guy, but now I see he's just as rotten as she is. They deserved each other, I guess. I had to remind myself that I wasn't the one at fault here, no matter how much it hurt. I decided I couldn't let her get away with this without some kind of consequence. I wasn't just going to walk away quietly. No, I needed to do something to make her regret crossing me. I knew I couldn't trust her anymore, but I also knew I had to protect myself, my reputation, my career, my sanity. So I started planning my revenge in my own way. First, I got rid of her stuff. I didn't want her belongings cluttering up my space anymore. It was like I needed to erase her from my life, piece by piece. I dumped her clothes in the dumpster, threw out her jewelry, even deleted all the photos we had together. It was cathartic, like I was finally cutting loose from this toxic chapter of my life. Then I looked into what I could do to hit her where it hurts. Not physically, I wasn't that kind of guy, but emotionally, strategically. I knew she'd try to spin her story, make it seem like I was the crazy one, so I had to be smart. I started gathering evidence of her lies, her manipulations, and her continued contact with Mark. I wanted to ensure that if I ever told someone what she'd done, I'd have proof. I also contacted my lawyer, just in case she decided to try and take me to court over the house or anything else. But more than that, I wanted her to feel the pain of what she'd done. I wanted her to see the damage she caused, how her betrayal broke everything I thought we had. So I devised a plan. I'd leak her emails and texts to some of her friends and family, people who might be surprised to learn the truth. Not to humiliate her outright, but enough to make her realize that her lies and manipulations had consequences. I knew she was bitchy and manipulative, but I wanted her to see just how much she'd lost: her reputation, her marriage, any shred of respect. Meanwhile, I also focused on my work. I threw myself into my career even more. I knew I needed to rebuild my confidence. I started working late, taking on extra projects, pushing for that promotion I'd been after. I didn't want her to win in the end. I wanted to prove that I was better off without her, that I could stand on my own 2 feet even after she tried to destroy me. The emotional toll was brutal. I'd go from moments of rage to deep sadness all within minutes. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night, sweat pouring down my face, thinking about the hotel, about her lying to my face, about Mark's sleazy grin. I'd feel stupid for loving her, for trusting her. But then I'd remind myself that I deserved better. I deserved someone who wasn't a backstabbing, manipulative bitch. I deserved someone who respected me, who valued honesty. I knew I'd have to face her again someday, maybe in court or maybe just in conversation, but I wasn't afraid anymore. I was angry, yes. Hurt, sure. But I was also determined. I wasn't going to let her get away with this, not without a fight. I'd come out of this stronger, even if it took months or years. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my dignity and making damn sure she knew she couldn't manipulate or betray me and walk away scot-free. Part of me still hoped she'd come back, maybe because I wanted closure or maybe because I couldn't quite believe she'd be so cold. But if she did, I'd be ready. I'd tell her exactly what I thought of her, how much she hurt me, how she threw away everything we had for a fling, for some stupid hotel rendezvous. And if she thought she could just walk back into my life after all that, she'd find out real quick how much I'd changed. I wasn't going to be a fool again. Not after this. Not after she showed her true colors. The days following her departure were the hardest I'd ever experienced. Every corner of this apartment seemed to echo with her absence. The silence was deafening. I kept replaying everything: the emails, her lies, the way she sneered and called me crazy. It was like a shitstorm in my head that refused to clear. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and honestly, I felt like I was just existing in some kind of limbo. My trust in her was shattered, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been completely duped. I knew I had to act, though. Sitting around feeling sorry for myself wasn't going to help. I started by gathering all the evidence: screenshots of her messages, the email chain, the hotel plans. I wanted everything documented in case she decided to deny or spin her way out of it. I also contacted a lawyer to understand my rights. I didn't want her trying to twist things in her favor or claim I was the bad guy. I needed to be prepared for whatever she might do next. One thing I did was reach out to a few of her friends, people I'd trusted, people who knew her. I needed to give them the full picture: what she'd been doing behind my back, how she'd been planning to sabotage my career, and her affair with Mark. I told them I wasn't trying to humiliate her, but just wanted them to know the truth. Some of them were shocked. Others already suspected she was capable of this, but no one knew the full extent. I didn't want to broadcast it everywhere, but I needed allies. I needed people who would see her for what she was. Then I turned my focus inward. I knew I had to rebuild my confidence and get myself back on track. I threw myself into work, taking on extra projects, pushing for that promotion I'd been after. The day I saw her email chain, I realized I'd been too trusting, too naive. That's why I started working late, staying focused, and proving to myself that I could succeed without her lies and manipulations dragging me down. I wanted her to see that I was capable of surviving without her, that I was stronger than her betrayal. Emotionally, I was a mess. Some nights I'd lie awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, feeling the pain of betrayal tighten around my chest. I'd think about her, about the hotel, about Mark, how they deceived me, how she'd used me as some kind of pawn in her game. I'd get angry, then sad, then numb. It was a roller coaster I never signed up for. But beneath all that, I knew I'd come out the other side, even if it took time. I also started leaning on some friends. Not the kind of friends who just tell you to move on or say everything will be fine. No, I needed people who could listen, who understood what I was going through. I told them everything, from the initial signs to the email chain to her lying accusations. And they confirmed what I already knew. I deserved better. I deserved honesty, respect, and someone who wouldn't betray me like that. Part of me kept thinking about what I'd do if she tried to come back. Honestly, I wasn't sure I wanted her to. After everything she'd done, I didn't know if I could forgive her. Maybe I was just too hurt still. But I was also determined not to be manipulated again. I promised myself that I would take my time, that I wouldn't rush into any decisions. Whatever happened next, I'd do it on my terms. The thing I learned through all this, more than anything, is how fragile trust really is. I always thought I knew Lisa, but now I see how easily people can hide their true selves. The betrayal cut deep, but I also realized I had a choice. I could let this destroy me or use it as a wake-up call. I chose the latter. I decided I'd rebuild my life stronger and more cautious. I'd learn to trust again, but differently, more carefully, more wisely. I can't say I'm fully healed yet. Some days are still terrible, but I know I'm moving forward. I've made up my mind that I won't let her, or anyone like her, control me anymore. I'm reclaiming my life, my dignity, and I'll make damn sure I come out of this better than I was before. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that betrayal can break you, but it doesn't have to define you. Not forever. Looking back now, I realize how much this whole experience has changed me. At first, I was just broken, aching from the betrayal, questioning everything I thought I knew about love and trust. But somewhere along the way, I found a different strength, one I never knew I had. I learned that betrayal is the end of the world. It's an awakening. A brutal, painful awakening, yes, but one that forces you to see things clearly, to see people for who they really are. I've come to understand that sometimes the people closest to us can turn out to be the biggest enemies. Lisa was supposed to be my partner, someone I trusted with my life. Instead, she turned out to be one of the most manipulative and selfish people I've ever met. Her lies, her cheating, her plan to sabotage me, all of it revealed how little she cared about what we had. It hurt like hell, but it also freed me from the illusion I'd been living in. I've also learned that revenge isn't about hurting others, but about reclaiming your power. I didn't want to stoop to her level, but I knew I had to do something to restore my dignity. Leaking her emails, confronting her directly, making sure everyone knew what she was capable of. Those weren't just petty acts. They were my way of taking control, of saying, you don't get away with this without consequences. And honestly, it felt damn good to stand up for myself for once. Today, I'm more cautious. I don't trust easily anymore, but I also don't live in fear. I've learned that betrayal can happen even in the strongest relationships, but that doesn't mean I have to let it define me. I'm rebuilding my life, piece by piece, stronger than before. I've started dating again, cautiously, and I'm learning to open my heart without losing my guard entirely. It's a slow process, but I want to believe that I'll find someone who's worthy of my trust, someone who respects me enough not to betray me so deeply. What this whole ordeal has really taught me is the importance of listening to that little voice inside you, the one that warns you when something's wrong. I ignored my instincts for too long, blinded by love and loyalty. Now I see that sometimes you have to step back and ask yourself hard questions. Is this person honest? Do their actions match their words? If you're constantly questioning, that's a red flag. Trust is earned, not given blindly. And as much as I wish I could go back and change everything, I know I can't. The pain is still there, but it's less sharp now. It's a scar, permanent, but also a reminder of how far I've come. I've learned that true strength isn't just about power or success. It's about resilience, getting up after falling, facing the truth even when it hurts, and deciding to move forward despite everything. So here I am, finally at a point where I can say I'm okay. Not perfect, not healed completely, but okay. Better than I was when I first found out. I've come to understand that life is messy and unpredictable. The people we love can hurt us the most, but we also get to decide how we respond. I refuse to be a victim of what she did. Instead, I'm choosing to be a survivor and a fighter. And that, I suppose, is the biggest lesson I've learned. No matter how deep the betrayal, you can rebuild. You can come out stronger. And eventually, you'll find your way back to happiness. Better, wiser, and more aware of what truly matters.